Okay, let's talk about something weird. Something millions of us are dealing with every single day. This feeling that our brains are just drowning, even when we're supposed to be resting. And you know that feeling? It often comes from this little guy right here. We think we're relaxing, but what we're about to find out is that that might be a complete and total illusion. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? It's been a long day. You finally get to sit down. You grab your phone to wind down for a bit, and then an hour of scrolling goes by, and somehow you feel more tired, more foggy, and definitely less rested than when you started. If this sounds familiar, I promise you, you are not alone. And this quote, man, it just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly captures that internal chaos. See, on the outside, you're just passively watching videos or scrolling through pictures. But on the inside, your brain is anything but passive. It's actually going through this crazy, intense workout, and we're about to dig into exactly why that is. So let's unpack this rest paradox. How is it that an activity that requires basically zero physical effort can leave us feeling so completely wiped out? Well, the answer is all about the fundamental difference between what our brains consider real rest and what our phones are actually doing to them. Okay, so look at this. This really breaks down the massive difference between recharging your brain's battery and just draining it. True rest, things like reading a book, going for a walk, even just daydreaming, that stuff actually restores your mental energy. But the passive consumption of endless scrolling, it does the exact opposite. It's not rest at all. It's this constant, low-level drain that keeps your brain on high alert. And this is what that high alert state is all about. Your brain gets trapped in what's called hypervigilance. I mean, think about it. You've got TikToks, memes, shocking headlines, a DM. It's this rapid-fire assault of totally disconnected information. Your brain never, ever gets a moment to just breathe. It never gets a chance to switch into recovery mode. It's just stuck processing and processing and processing. And here is the real biological kicker. Every single swipe, every new post, it triggers what scientists call a micro-stress response. Every single one releases a tiny little puff of the stress hormone cortisol. Now, it's not a full-blown panic attack. It's more like this low-grade, constant state of fight or flight that leaves your nervous system feeling absolutely fried. You're not relaxing, you're literally simmering in stress. So, if cortisol is keeping us stressed out, why on earth do we keep coming back for more? Well, that brings us to the second major chemical player in this whole game, dopamine. Now, you've probably heard it called the pleasure chemical, but its real job is a lot more complicated than that. Yeah, we often think of dopamine as the pleasure chemical, but it's way more accurate to call it the chemical of motivation. To give you an idea, scientists did this experiment where mice couldn't produce dopamine, and they wouldn't even go get food. They would literally starve to death, even when the food was just inches away. That is how powerful this chemical is in driving us to seek out rewards. Now, get a load of this chart. Eating some chocolate gives you about a 55% bump in dopamine over your baseline. Pretty good. But a social media notification, that can spike it by up to 400%. That tiny little buzz in your pocket delivers a chemical reward that absolutely dwarfs most natural pleasures. It creates this infinite loop of motivation to just keep scrolling. But there is a huge, serious downside to this chemical fire hose. When your brain gets used to these massive, easy dopamine hits, the real world, well, it starts to seem kind of dull. Your whole reward system gets recalibrated. This can lead to a condition called anhedonia, where the things you used to love, like a great conversation or watching a beautiful sunset, they just don't give you that same kick anymore. And the impact here can be devastating. Research shows that young people who spend 7 or more hours a day on screens are twice as likely to be diagnosed with depression or anxiety. So we're not just talking about feeling a little foggy. There is a direct line here to some really serious mental health challenges. Okay, so where is the line between just a bad habit and a full-blown addiction? Now, addiction is a strong word, I get it, but clinicians use a very specific checklist to diagnose it. So let's just go through these 5 questions and see how our own phone habits measure up. First up, cravings. This is when that desire, that itch to look at your phone is so strong that it pulls you right out of the present moment. You could be with your friends, your family, your kids, trying to work, but some part of your brain is just waiting, just counting the seconds until you can check your screen again. Second on the list is salience. And this is all about how much your phone actually impacts your emotional state. Does your mood go up and down based on the number of likes you get? Does seeing someone else's perfect life online make you feel worse about your own? If the answer is yes, then your phone has a pretty significant hold on your mood. Third, tolerance. This one is a classic sign of addiction, and it's caused by something called neuroadaptation. Basically, your brain gets used to these super high levels of stimulation, so you find you need to scroll longer or find even crazier apps just to get that same initial feeling of engagement that you used to get from a few minutes. Number 4 is withdrawal. What happens when you're separated from your phone? Do you get that sense of unease, maybe some anxiety, or even get a little angry? This is not just in your head. Studies show that when you put your phone down, it can actually trigger a release of the stress hormone cortisol, creating a real physical feeling of anxiety that just makes you want to pick it right back up again. And finally, number 5, relapse. Have you ever set rules for yourself like, okay, no phone after 10 p.m., only to find yourself right back in your old habits a week later? If you answered yes to some of these, you are definitely not alone. But the good news is you absolutely can get back in control. So if you saw a bit of yourself in that checklist, what can you actually do about it? The answer isn't to just throw your phone in a river. It's about being intentional. So let's walk through a pretty simple, research-backed, 3-step guide to reclaim your brain. The whole strategy is based on creating simple but firm boundaries, or what we're going to call bindings. And there are 3 main types: chronological binding, which is about when you use your phone; physical binding, which is about where your phone is; and categorical binding, which is about what you use your phone for. All right, let's break these down. First up, chronological. Set strict time limits. Instead of having it on you 24/7, schedule 1, maybe 2 blocks per day for all that scrolling. Second, physical. Create some friction. At night, actually turn your phone off and put it in another room. Log out of the apps that you check compulsively. And finally, categorical. You need to make your phone boring again. Turn on grayscale mode, move your social media apps to your computer only. The goal is to make your phone a tool, not a toy. And this is a brilliant example of what a day could actually look like. Notice the huge blocks of time where the phone is just off limits. You've got a specific designated hour to catch up on things, but for the rest of the day, your brain is free from those constant microstressors and dopamine hits. This is what allows your brain to actually recover and readapt to normal life. And honestly, this right here is the most important thing to remember. Your brain isn't fixed in stone. It has this incredible ability to change, to form new connections, and it's a process called neuroplasticity. By changing your habits, you can literally physically rewire your brain to be less dependent on your device and way more present in your actual life. It takes time, for sure, but it is absolutely possible. So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. When you're no longer draining your mental battery on passive consumption, when you reclaim all those hours and all that focus, what are you going to do? What will you create or learn or experience with